All right, then we got ourselves a clock. Now we just need to wait for this to kick over. Come on. There we go. Okay. Okay, we got that. We're good there. I've clicked on the wrong thing. This is all good. All right. Excuse me. Got something in my throat. All right. And there we go. Good morning from at least this side of the planet. What have we got here? We got good evening from Qatar. That's cool. From sunny Dunfermline. That's a word. That's a made-up word. I can't pronounce that. What else have we got here? Seoul. We've got Texas. We've got Northern Italy. We've got Portugal, Manchester, UK. We have some cat shenanigans happening in the background. She's trying to get at those gloves that are in that bag or something. Anyway, Australia. Let's see here. Belgium, West Virginia, Las Vegas, Levittown, Pennsylvania. We've got Netherlands. We've got, oh gosh, more Texas. Morning from Milwaukee land, Glasgow, Scotland. We've got Berlin, Germany. I saw that moderator Matt was in the chat. Arkansas, Post Falls, Idaho, Switzerland. Yes, it was Margot. She was being a bit naughty. We got France. We've got Brooklyn, Poland, Surf City, Yorkshire. Get away from there! Hey, get. She was trying to get me to pet her, and I was petting her, and then she wants to start, and then I wanted to start, and now she's just trying to find ways to be annoying. And she's real good at it. Yes, that's true. Oklahoma, Phoenix, Singapore, Poland, Northern Virginia. Hello from virus-bombed Milwaukee. We've got Warwickshire. Let me see what else. More New York, more Illinois, Denmark. I'm painting some orc boys and trying to figure out how I will find room for at least 3 giants in my very full hobby room. Well, they may or may not be quite as big as we think. It's hard to say. The one thing that I really wish they would have just said yesterday is they are roughly this tall, but they kind of kept kind of showing them near other things, but not quite, and so it's hard to tell. Aaron asks, can you get Henry Cavill to do a painting tutorial with you? No, probably. I don't know that he's trying to get into that particular area. I mean, I know he's starting to paint 40K, but yeah, that's definitely a thing. Morning from Tampa. Cat's real good at getting into trouble. Yeah, that's sometimes true as well, certainly. Got Louisville, Kentucky. Good morning from Washington State. Jonathan says, hi from Ottawa, doing work on my 40K Adepticon army that I didn't need to take to Chicago. That is true. That is a bummer, but there you go. Yeah, it's there's been a lot of talk about, obviously Adepticon and all that kind of stuff, and I mean, I'm glad that people were kept safe, and so there's that, but we obviously do hope that we get to start going to some of these events again as soon as we can. So yeah, next big question is probably Gen Con and how that's going to go. They haven't announced anything yet, but I don't know if 70,000 sweaty nerds all in one big building is a good idea in the best of times, sometimes, because I can tell you I've come home from conventions with some sort of con crud. But yeah, I don't know. So let's see here. Jeff says, greetings from a Nova Nerd Bunker, painting Fire Mountain Gutbusters, and wondering if there's a better way to fill slots in bases than green stuff. Fill slots in slot bases than with green stuff. Well, I did a video several years back about it. I like to use little pieces of, like when I eat a granola bar and there's the kind of foil wrapper, I keep the wrapper sometimes, and then I use little pieces of that and glue it over the top of the slot base, and that works pretty well for me. But yeah, there's a video about it, so take a look. Let's see here. Easily Distracted Planner says, painting even more scales on my fire-colored War Hydra. Next time, not the gray contrast paint undercoat for yellow. Also, painting scales sucks. Yeah, painting scales, that's a lot of work. I mean, I generally try to just dry brush, but a good painter does have a tendency to go through and kind of work on each scale. So, yeah. John Patchman says, so Superman is painting minis now. Yeah, he posted on Instagram last week. He was painting I think a Custodes. He's been a gamer for a long time, that Henry Cavill, like a video gamer and stuff like that. And now because of the quarantine, he's finally taken up 40K painting and stuff like that. So, and he's not the only one, honestly, as far as like famous people that if you've ever watched the movie Baby Driver, which came out a couple years back, the lead kid in that, the Baby Driver, that guy, I can't think of his name because it's really weirdly spelled, but he's a Golden Demon winner back in the mid-2000s. And who else paints? There's another actor named Raul, and I can't think of his last name, starts with a K, and he was in a TV show called iZombie. He was like the doctor. He's been in a couple other things that I've kind of seen here and there. Anyway, he's been painting Star Wars Legion because he's a huge Star Wars fan. So, and he's been doing quite well at it, actually. So yeah, I follow him on Instagram as well. So anyway, yeah, that's definitely it's not something to say that it makes sense because especially actors, I think they can have a lot of downtime. So it makes sense. Let me see. What else have we got? If Sons of Behemet are as awesome as they... And then it just stopped. Sorry. Hello from Osaka, Japan. Good evening, I'm assuming, probably. Hey, Uncle Adam, I'm wondering if that Zone Mortalis terrain still waits in your basement. Zone Mortalis. I mean, I have the Necromunda Dark Uprising box, and I guess that's kind of Zone Mortalis. I do not have the three-dimensional bottom part. I did not buy the tiles, I guess you'd say, but I do have the stuff that came in that box. It is currently still in the box, but I am working on some other three-dimensional terrain right now. I've got stuff from Secret Weapon Miniatures, Tablescapes tiles, I think they're called, and these are more kind of stony, kind of a little more outdoorsy. I painted them. I think one of my most recent Instagram photos was a picture of me priming them outside. I primed them like a sand color, so they're in progress right now. VJ Morph says Ansel Elgort. That's the guy's name. Who is the? It sounds made up, but it's the name of the guy who Baby Driver. And Raul Kali. He's the guy who is from that iZombie TV show and stuff like that. Peter Cushing was a mini wargamer and painter. Yes, that's true. Obviously, historicals and stuff more than that. Peter Cushing was Grand Moff Tarkin in the Star Wars. Let me see here. John Ashley Smith says, anyone see those Wargames Atlantic Grognards? 192 heads in the box for 24 figures. Wicked. Yeah, I ordered them back during Adepticant, and I'm hoping that they show up eventually. I kind of thought they'd be here by now, but I did order them. Allegedly, Vin Diesel plays Blood Angels. Huh, I had no idea. And Robin Williams was a Warhammer player as well. That I'd heard. Let's see. John J. says, we need a Tabletop Minions merch item that can be placed in a place of honor in our own nerd bunkers, perhaps a water cup or brush holder. Actually, I worked on a brush holder, and it was going to be released at Adepticon before everything kind of went sort of squirrely. I'm not quite sure exactly where it is now. It might still be in China, might not. I could probably do a mug. I'll have to take a look. Yeah, I've been kind of slowly in between. I've been spending a lot of time trying to paint and build and do all that kind of stuff because I mean, we've got the time. But I have been doing a little bit of work on some merch stuff too, but it's been slow. Let me see here. I went from not caring about Henry Cavill to respecting his dedication. Shame he was attached to those awful DC movies, but The Witcher has helped. Well, I mean, I don't hate the DC movies, so there's that, I guess. They're not as good as other ones, probably, but that's always the case in some situation. Let's see here. The best tabletop minion swag is obviously a shower curtain. I have not. The company that I do the merch stuff through does. You can do a shower curtain, but I'm not particularly. I don't know that that's a good idea. Let's see here. Good morning from Seattle. The Baby Driver guy painted a Space Wolf bust. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I think that was what he won his Golden Demon with. Hey, Uncle Adam, did you ever create a Discord? I believe it was an idea being kicked around. Yeah, there's a Discord. It is for the Patreon. Like, there's the 3 tiers, the Patreon folks, the $1 a month, the $2 a month, and the $4 a month. And the $4 a month people, the Uncle Adam's irregulars, they have got. Hang on, boom. They've got there's a Discord for the Uncle Adam's irregulars, and actually, and then also I do a live show for the irregulars every month. It was yesterday. It's on whatever Saturday is closest to the 20th of the month. I'm not exactly sure how I got onto that schedule, but it's a schedule I've been trying to stick to. It's been easier since I haven't been traveling or going anywhere. But yeah, so if you're interested in that, the Discord's kind of nice because it's people who are a little bit more dedicated. I don't have to go through and edit a lot, and there's not a lot of shenanigans and stuff. Not bad shenanigans. There's good shenanigans. That's a lot of fun in there. But yeah, it's for the irregulars. So there's that. So you could go there if you were interested and just connect your Patreon to your Discord, and then you automatically get stuck in, as it were. Let's see here. What else have we got? Shower curtain or throw pillow is where it's at. I have thought about doing a throw pillow because that's, again, another thing I could do there. Hello from Brazil. I'm basing my Cypher Lords for Warcry. Is it weird to melt snow bases for warriors underdressed in the cold? Well, sometimes I'm wearing shorts right now, and it's not particularly warm outside. But yeah, that's I don't have a problem with snow bases if your people are relatively underdressed. I think it should work fine. Let me see here. Tips for painting white that doesn't look too gray or blue. I feel as if GW's white contrast is too gray. The Apothecary white contrast is not white. It is gray. I have found that it works great. I did a video about how to paint stormtroopers last year. Excuse me, I've got something. I try to clear my throat before the show, and then there's always something stuck in it. So if you prime white, whatever your model is, you prime it white, and then you put Apothecary gray on top of it, let that dry, it will then kind of gray things down, but it will get into the crevices a bit. And then if you go back with a makeup brush, like I like to use a nice big fat makeup brush from like a dollar store or something like that, and then you dry brush white on it again, it will then bring the model back mostly to white except in the crevices and the deeper recesses, and that actually works out real well. If you use one of the contrast primers though, whether it's the gray sear or warpstone as your base for the contrast, then it just won't work, the white color. It will always look either a little too warm or a little too cool. But if you use a straight white primer, put that stuff on there, and then dry brush back up to white, it actually works quite nicely. That's the way I did all my stormtroopers, like I said, and I think they turned out decent, especially for how quick I went through them. I did 28 stormtroopers in a short period of time because they were so fast that way. Let's see here. John Ashley Smith says, I'm avoiding burnout by switching between different projects and genres, fantasy to sci-fi, historical models after that, guitar, then World of Tanks on my PS4. Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to focus mostly on working on miniatures, building and painting. Moderator Matt and I have been playing a little bit of video games, but that's not a ton. I've been mostly trying to do is you've got the time, so I'm trying to get a bunch of stuff done. I think that's a good idea, at least for me. Let's see here. Speaking of The Hobbit, well, someone must have been. I really wish more people near me played Middle-earth SPG. Yeah, it's a very regional kind of thing, and that's a kind of a bummer. But that's the way that, like, unfortunately, the way that our industry works is that, like, there are certain games, only the biggest ones, that you can find nearly everywhere, and then every other game takes some sort of instigator. You'll go to some city, small city, big city, whatever, and you'll find out that this one particular game is incredibly popular here. And you'd be like, well, that's weird, because I didn't think that was a very popular game, but everybody here plays it. And it's because a person or a small group of people started playing it, and then just sort of like a virus, it just sort of spread, and then a bunch of people started playing it. And it takes a person being a little, I think, proactive. You become an advocate for a specific game. Like, it's not hard to get people to play 40K pretty much anywhere because of its popularity and all that kind of stuff. But if you're like, hey, I want to really play, War Machine, you're going to have to work a little bit harder, but you can still do it. You can't maybe make everybody in your area do it, but you can make enough people, or at least a few people, or you can start a club and get a dozen people. I mean, honestly, having a dozen different players to play against, that's a pretty decent number. Like, if you're one of those people that's like, I can only play a game if I can have 50 different people to play against at all times, well, good luck. But I mean, even half a dozen different people to play against from time to time for a lot of games is plenty. So, at least in my opinion. So yeah. Let me see. Hi, Uncle Adam. I want to get into Elder Scrolls game. Where do you think I can get some good trees with snow, or more terrain with snow? I think in a lot of situations, what happens is you end up taking current, like, unsnowy terrain and snowifying it. I mean, like, if after Christmas, if you go to, like, the places where you buy Christmas decorations, then sometimes you can buy those, like, pine trees that already have snow blown onto them for, like, cheap. But otherwise, I would try to find trees and then, like, dry brush them white here and there. That's not a bad idea. So yeah. Let's see here. Mr. Grimm asks a question. Do you think that the Creature Caster paints are worth the money? I think so. I bought the line. I bought all of them at Las Vegas Open, and so I got them shipped because otherwise they wouldn't fit in my luggage. But yeah, so I like the creature. Well, they're Creature Caster / Monument. The line is called Pro Acryl, and I like them quite a bit. I bought the white first. A couple years back when they first came out, because I was always looking for a good white, like a good white paint that wasn't too chalky or too thin, and I really liked it. And then I started seeing a lot of other people who were really talking about that paint, and so I went and looked and checked it out, and I talked to them at Las Vegas Open, and then I prepaid for it, and they shipped it when I got home. So yeah, I have like the whole line of all the different colors, including the metallics and the transparents. I mean, they don't have a ton. It's not like it's hundreds of paints. I think it's 50-ish maybe. So yeah, that's a relatively new paint line, but yeah, I like them. So yeah. Let me see here. Anyone here play Age of Sigmar or 40K on Tabletop Simulator? I played Tabletop Simulator for the first time a week ago, actually. I played Relic Blade. Malev, who's one of the Malev Shinobi, who's one of the he's a Twitch streamer and a very good painter. He spits fire, as the kids say, with the rhymes, the flow, whatever. He's a musician as well, but he's also like partial designer and like demo team for Relic Blade, the fantasy kind of skirmish miniatures game. And so I had not yet ever gotten a demo of it. And so he not only showed me Relic Blade, but he also showed me Tabletop Simulator, which I thankfully, thanks to Emily and her husband Yancey, they'd sent me a copy of it because they had an extra copy and everything. And so that was very nice. But yeah, it was interesting. I liked, I mean, the interface is squirrely at best, but once you get used to it, it's not too bad for Tabletop Simulator. So there's a lot of people, I think, that are playing games on that. I know some of the irregulars have been playing Gaslands a little bit here and there on Tabletop Simulator, so that's cool. I am trying to figure out, since Tabletop Minions Expo, TMX, is not going to happen. Let me see here. So it was going to be June 6th and 7th, 2020. This is the old... That's the old one. No. So this is not going to happen, at least not here in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. So I'm thinking about trying to make a virtual one, which would be VIRTUAL. And so I don't know. We were talking a little bit about it yesterday, actually, in the Irregulars chat about what could be done. So you're starting to see more and more virtual conventions, and so thoughts. I'm trying to figure out, like, probably some virtual tabletop stuff, like, Tabletop Simulator. Probably some, maybe like an online class. Maybe we can get Sam to do like I don't know if you can do private Twitch streams. I mean, we could do an unlisted, YouTube stream or something like that, or we'll figure something out. But I'm thinking about trying to do some of that for TMX this year, because it's not going to happen in the real world, as it were. So there's that. I know there was a virtual convention for a podcast, Paint All the Minis, I think it was maybe last weekend. I heard about it, but I didn't attend. I mean, attend. And anyway, so trying to figure that one out. So thinking about it, yeah. Hey, Uncle Adam, I'm just starting on Age of Sigmar with Sylvaneth. I'm a bit scared about taking those fiddly branches out of the house. Any budget ideas for transporting them? A friend of mine magnetized the bases. So you take some of those little rare earth magnets, you buy them online someplace, and you just glue them on the underside of the base, because the base is kind of like hollow on the underside. Unless you bought like resin bases that are real fancy, then those have a tendency not to be hollow. But if you bought regular plastic bases or use the bases that the model came with, then there's like a bit of a space there. And there's tutorials online for how to do this. But once you put some magnets or a magnet in there, then you can put those models inside of a metal tackle box. So they're basically they're just resting on the base and they're attached to the wall of the tackle box, but they're not touching anything. I've seen people take those plastic tubs that you put your shoes in and you slide them underneath your bed, so they're not real high, but they're kind of wide and square or rectangular. And then put a piece of glue, hot glue, a piece of tin or some other sort of ferrous metal into the bottom of it, so you can attach the models. There's also, if you want to go fancy, then definitely companies like Battle Foam has an entire system designed for magnetic stuff. They call it Magnarak, which kind of sounds like Ragnarok, but not quite. And anyway, you can, again, it's this kind of rack that goes inside one of their Battle Foam cases, and then you can magnetize your models and attach them to the little shelves and stuff like that. So there are options. Like I said, I've got a friend who's a Sylvaneth player and has had the exact same thing. Because, yeah, they're pretty spindly. You don't want to put them in foam and that. So, yeah. Let's see here. What else have we got? Wub likes my pro infographics. Yes, I am very good at it. I assume that Sons of Behemet will be destruction, but have a rule where they can also ally with any faction in any grand alliance. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. They kind of, I don't remember them saying anything about how that's going to work, the rules or anything along those lines. But yeah, that's definitely. It would be really smart if they did it that way, because then just more people would end up buying those models because they could all use them as like some sort of mercenaries or something like that. Yeah. Darren Walker says, do you think Nova Open will still happen this year? That's a good question. I mean, that's in technically very early September. I'm not sure. I don't know. We'll see, I guess. It's going to come down straight to, honestly, like what the Crystal City, is that the name of the place where it takes place technically? It'll come down to like how big of a gathering they'll allow. Like if they start to say, okay, well, gatherings of 250 people are fine. Well, that's going to be too small for something like Nova. If they say that gatherings under 10,000 are allowed, well, then that's going to be fine for something like Nova. But it'll be a good question to see whether or not that's going to be happening. Like, I know that just recently I got a newsletter from them, and every time I get a newsletter from them, I'm always checking to see if it's the newsletter that says, hey, we're going to have to cancel for this year. But so far, they're still running. But like I said, so far, Gen Con's still running too, technically. But San Diego Comic-Con canceled. Yeah, I don't hold out much hope for Gen Con. Hey, Adam, out of curiosity, are you planning on any new Age of Sigmar armies / new plans, particularly a result of the new Giants? I am working. Well, it has nothing to do with the Giants, I don't think, because I don't know that the Giants and Death would really work great together. But my plan originally was for 2020 was to build a small 1,000-point Night Haunt army, because me and Sam we were going to be in a team tournament in October or November at a tournament in Illinois called Holy Havoc. That was the plan. We basically kind of got talked into it a little bit by Vince Venturella, who was like, you should totally do this, it's a hoot, and they'd be glad to have you two there. And so we were going to do his Stormcast and my Night Haunts together as an army. But now I don't know whether that's going to happen or not. So yeah, but that. I do want to start painting them regardless, just in case it does happen, because it's a real small tournament. It's like, I think there's technically only 18 tables, so you can have, well, it'll be 4 people per table, so do the math. So yeah, that's a pretty small thing. Jeff says, you're my isolation hero. Watched hours since being on lockdown. Probably 6 hours yesterday. Well, thanks for watching, Jeff. I appreciate it. It's interesting because YouTube, like a lot of YouTube YouTube revenue is just crapped out. So like the actual ad revenue, because a lot of companies are pulling ads because they don't know, how they're doing as far as companies are concerned. Like big companies are still advertising here and there, but overall a lot of small companies are not. So because of that, ad revenue across the board has dropped 40+%, if not more. Views, though, have also kind of dropped a touch. And I don't know if that's just because I've always believed that a lot of people watch at work. So if they're not at work, they're home watching like Netflix and Tiger King and crap like that. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. But I appreciate the watching, and I hope that it helps you get through or paint or do whatever it is you need to do. Let's see. We got. Matthew asks, what are your thoughts on Infinity Code 1? I don't know what it is, so I think those are my thoughts. Is it a new thing from like the folks like from Corvus Belli Infinity? Or is it a different game? I would hope that there's not another game out there called Infinity something, because that will go poorly. If it's a new like add-on to Infinity, I haven't really seen anything about it. Let's see here. Thanasis says, have you checked Conquest: The Last Argument of Kings from Parabellum Wargames? Those minis are insane. Yes, I have somewhat. I got this when I was at the Reno trade show, the Gamma trade show in Reno, and I have some more sprues from them as well. I don't know that I will play the game because it is a kind of rank and flank, rank and file, move your units in a in a rectangle kind of a game, and I'm not into that type of particular game. But the models are very interesting looking. They're big. They're probably 40 mil. They're not like 28s. They're bigger than kind of everything else. So, but I do have some of the models just because I'm interested in trying them out and painting a little bit of them and stuff. And some of the sculpts are just really, really interesting. So there's that's that too. But if you do like games like old Warhammer Fantasy, Kings of War, that kind of stuff, Song of Ice and Fire, like I think that I've heard good things about this style of game. It's just I don't like pushing around rectangles of units. That's just not my thing. But yeah, so I am familiar with it, and they're putting out a lot of stuff, a lot of nice plastic minis, so that's cool. Where else my goodness, I'm behind. I apologize. Let's see. I'm very new to this hobby, 0 completed models, and decided to go for a foresty theme. LON army. Don't know what LON is, sorry. Do you have any tips for making the death rattle bones look kind of like bark? With or without green stuff? I would say probably, I mean, you need to texture somehow, so maybe try to find a texture paint that will work for that. I don't know. I've never tried to make bones look like bark before, so I don't know how to do that. Yeah, that's probably, I would try to find some sort of textured paint and then maybe, some dry brushing and stuff over that once that's the case. Let's see. Gaddis Gaming says that, hey Gaddis, Anvil Industries has a new line of Exolords power armor, and it's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I looked at those. I don't think I bought any. I was buying heads from Anvil Industry back in 2019 for a bunch of conversions and stuff that I was going to be working on. Kit bashing and stuff, if you will. And I did notice that not only are they making lots of bits now, but they also make complete lines of models. And yeah, they've been doing amazing work with like power armor that's not 40k, and I think Puppets War has also been doing really nice looking kind of power armor stuff that's again not 40k, so that's very cool. I mean, it's all resin, it's not plastics, it's not metal, but it's decent. It's not finecast, let's just say that. So there's that. Finding fresh starts on my hobby is good for the soul right now rather than continuing my main projects. I mean, it can be, certainly. If you need to change gears, I think it's a good way to go, honestly. I've been, and I made a video about this just recently, I've been going through and trying to find things that were half done and then figuring out how I can make them all done. And like I said, I did that with a bunch of terrain recently and some other stuff. So I've been alternating back and forth between like kind of kit bashing and doing that kind of stuff, and then finding things that I've already got some work done on and seeing, well, if I just did a little bit more work on this would be done, or something like that. So I've been hopping back and forth that way. But yeah, I never like to just stick with one thing. But I do think it's a good idea to, if you're looking for something like, hey, I finished, look for something that's near done. Maybe especially if it's been sitting around for a long time, then you feel like a real hero when you get this done. You'll be like, this has been sitting here for 2 years and now it's finished. Hooray. And it's like, well, if you would have spent an hour on it 2 years ago, you would have finished it as well. But, still, a win's a win, Yeah. Cheap plastic containers for scrapbooking with 2-sided tape and 12-inch steel plates work great for mini storage. Cheap, too. Oh, yeah, if you can find, like, metal plating and then, stick it in there, and then, with the magnets, that's also a good place to do that kind of thing, too. Let's see. I would doubt that there will be any big events this year, but you guys in the States are doing some very strange version of social distancing. Yes, in certain parts of that is the case. I agree. Let's see here. Wubdub says, hey, Uncle Adam, do you varnish your models? I've heard lots of horror stories of misting, but my minis are starting to get tarnished. Got any safe, foolproof tips? I do varnish. I used to be a big Tester's Dull Coat fan. Those little tiny rattle cans that you would buy at like some places that were sometimes hard to find. And then I feel as if like 2-3 years ago, the formulation got changed and it was no longer quite as dull, kind of matte varnish as it used to be. I know that they had to change the formulation in Europe because Europe was like, hey, this stuff's dangerous and you can't sell it here anymore. So they changed it, and then people in Europe were like, well, now this isn't very dull coat anymore. And then it was still good in the States, and then all of a sudden it changed, and then I wonder if they had to change it here too. I don't use dull coat anymore. Now I use, there's a company called AK Interactive, kind of like AK-47. But AK Interactive makes a varnish called Ultra Matte Varnish. You can fire it through an airbrush. You can paint it on with a paintbrush. And it is now my new favorite because it is really flat. I really like it. So normally when I get done, I do that. Some people, I know Vince Venturella has talked a lot. He's also a big fan of that particular varnish from AK Interactive, but he always basically paints the majority of the model except for the metallic bits, then varnishes everything, then paints the metallic stuff, but does not varnish the metallic stuff with matte because he feels as it makes it less metallic then. I guess I haven't noticed a huge difference in between the two. Like, I don't look at it and go, wow, the metallic's not metallic anymore. But I also like to paint everything grungy. And so making the metallic maybe just a touch less shiny doesn't really click on my radar because I've already kind of grunged up the metallics, specifically lately with enamel washes. So, but that's my thing. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. But yeah, so if you can find it, and it's not easy to find sometimes. I think the last bottle that I bought on eBay. But yeah, it's AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish is my particular jam. Let's see here. Billy Davis has recently picked up an A case for my spindly models. It's metal and you magnetize the bases, like you said. Like it so far, but there are a few brands out there for magnet cases. Yeah, I've also seen A case. They're from Poland, I believe. And they make like a soft kind of nylon case, kind of. It's sort of squishy. But then there's the metal frame that you put inside, and that's where you magnetize your models and stuff like that. So yeah, they've been doing that stuff for a while. I think we gave away an A case, a smaller one, at TMX 2018 or 2019. I forget exactly which one. Let's see. What else have we got here? Hey, Adam, will you be at Origins now that it's been moved to October? Maybe. I was planning on going to Origins, which was going to be in June, late June, I think. It's in Columbus, Ohio. So that was my plan. If things are good, then and they still have it in October, I would like to go. Probably be a lot of not shaking hands and maybe even wearing a mask, though, so we'll see. But I would like to go, but we'll see how that goes out. Let's see here. Check out. No, most definitely. No. Although you could. There's a lot of back and forth that I'm catching like the wrong parts of, which is fine. I'm glad that you folks like to chat with each other. That's building community right there. Yeah. Come on. Frosted glass can make your true metallic metal look like non-metallic metal. There is a spray can, and I forget who makes it. Is it Rust-Oleum? It's either Rust-Oleum or Krylon, but it might be Rust-Oleum. Right above there. J Solo Art says, Rust-Oleum frosted glass is the best matte varnish hands down, but it is in a rattle can. I own a can of it. I've been nervous to try it, but I'd heard about that from a guy that I met at Adepticon several years back, and he was telling me that, yeah, this stuff that you're supposed to spray on glass so that it frosts the glass so you can't see it or see through it. He says that's the most awesome. And I'm like, but it frosts the glass. And he's like, yeah, it's counterintuitive. You would think that it would not work, but it works. And so I own a can of it, but I have not yet tried it. So I would not try it with something you love. I would try it with a test model or something first if you can find it. But yeah, Rust-Oleum frosted glass is also well known as a matte varnish by a lot of folks. J Solo Arts, I think, is a commission painter, so probably knows what they're talking about. Chris says, I regret not buying more contrast paints before the shutdowns. They've been great for quick paint jobs. I only have a couple good colors for Blackstone stuff, though. Yeah, I've been liking contrast colors, specific colors, a lot in certain situations. Also, I've been using some of the other colors in other situations. I am basically never using them the way that they're intended. Like, I'm never going and spraying on the primer color that they suggest and then going from there. I'm always either doing like zenithal highlights and then using this basically almost like as a glaze, or I'm using like the really super dark ones like Wildwood or Black Templar, just as a very quick, I need to paint this black but not quite completely black. The benefit really I find of contrast paints is the fact that they're so fluid. You can just get some in your brush and do like a whole bunch without having to go back to the pot over and over again. And it flows into all the crevices nicely, so that's really good for that. But yeah, I'm going to be doing a video about contrast paints. I almost kind of want to wait till June and do it on the 1 year anniversary of the launch, but I might do it sooner. I don't know. It's hard to say. But yeah. Let's see. Hi, Adam. To date myself with the time unfortunately given us, I finally completed models I picked up in the early 90s from Ralpartha. Well, see, a win is a win, like I said. Davey asks, maybe this question's a bit out of left field, but why are all the Forge World made of resin? I figured this was because they sold less units of those, but lately GW is releasing a lot of plastic models. Yeah, it's because Forge World models are... they don't sell as many of them because they're big and fancy and hugely expensive or very, very, very specific. So, yeah, you can't do plastic models when you're only going to crank out 200 or 300 of them, the kits, because the mold for making plastic models is steel, and it's a ton of work, and it's incredibly expensive to make a metal mold for injection plastic. Whereas for resin, they can make a mold. The molds don't last nearly as long either for resin, so they eventually tear and details start coming off, and then you just make a new mold. And they're really super cheap, but you have to make them more frequently. If you know you're going to make a lot of something, then it's a better overall price to do it in plastic, but you have to have that upfront cost of the mold, which, like, literally injection molding can cost $50,000 to make a plastic mold, or to make a steel mold for injection molding plastic. They can be cheaper as well, but it depends. It depends a lot on a lot of different things. Depends on detail. Depends on how big it is, how many pieces, that kind of stuff, and all that stuff. But detail is also a huge thing. There are plenty of companies out there that are making plastic, injection molding stuff, and you look at it, and the details are just soft. Even some of the GW stuff, like some of the terrain that you're getting, like that's kind of made a little bit more in China, the detail is really soft, and then because it just takes so much less money to make that mold. A really, really sharp, high detail like GW like figure, those molds are pretty expensive. So yeah, you got to make a lot of them. Which is why I'm a little confused by this whole thing about, like, they announced yesterday during the big preview that they're going to have these like kind of one-off, and they're calling it like print on demand. We're going to make these models on demand, and I'm like, but they're plastic, so what, you're going to make the molds and only make X amount of these and then never make them anymore? I thought I was very surprised by that, honestly, but we'll see. But yeah, that's why Forge World is resin, because it's specific, Let's see. Anyone got any tips on how to best shade dark green, or how to mix a nice dark green for orcs? A dark green, like to shade it. I mean, depending on what you want them to look like, you could sometimes even shade with like an Agrax earth shade, like a brown, if you want them to look like they're greenskins, but they're kind of dirty. You know what I mean? Like the brown is a warmer color, whereas the green is a cooler color. So then you get a kind of an interesting contrast in there sometimes. A lot of people only shade in black because they feel, well, black is neutral, so it'll work in either situation. But sometimes there's something to be said for shading, trying to do a shade in a color that's like the opposite to some degree of the color that you're trying to shade. Like I know Sam, he does a lot of this. Let's say if he's painting, like, say, Blood Angels, he'll do a lot of the shading and stuff like that in purples or greens because it's the opposite, or on the opposite side of the color wheel to some degree. Green specifically is on the opposite side of the color wheel from red, whereas purple's kind of. Whereas if you just like did it black, it would really just make the red look dingier. Which, if you want something to look dingy, like you want it to look like it's been, beat up a lot and is real grungy because of the war that it's been in, well, that's a different story, But yeah. Let me see here. Call your hobby stores, guys. Several of them in my area just have just the owner inside and are doing curbside pickup for one person in the store at a time. Yeah. I saw some people chatting earlier in the beginning before the show started talking about they were like running out of Null oil and stuff like that. GW stores, I don't know that they're doing curbside pickup or anything like that. I think they may have closed because it's a corporate thing or whatever. But if you've got any kind of independent store local near you, a lot of them are trying to stay in business. And so if you like call them on the phone and be like, hey, I need 2 pots of Null oil and this or whatever, a lot of times you can come pick that stuff up like curbside, kind of like if you're doing takeout food from a restaurant, sort of the same thing. A lot of your local shops would be very, very happy for you to come do that. I picked up, I got a wild hair and I'm building an armiger, AdMech armiger warglaive for a project, and I'm going to kind of kit bash him and do a bunch of stuff, but I didn't have that kit, so I just called my local shop and I was like, hey, do you have that in stock? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, can I come and so I paid him on PayPal and then just came by and then he set it outside and I picked it up and waved and walked away. So yeah, that's kind of the way it works. Sepia is a good shade for Dirty Orcs, says Rancid Polecat. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, definitely. What's a good edge highlight for orange? Honestly, I would probably go ivory. If you wanted to have like a real nice pop on it, I would go ivory, but be real subtle with it. Don't make sure your edge highlights are not like real thick. I have a tendency to do thick edge highlights if I try to actually do it where you like run the brush along the actual edge and stuff like that. I'm bad at that, so I have a tendency to do more makeup brush dry brushing for my edge highlighting, and that actually works a lot better. Wing It Gaming says, what do undercoats do need if painting yellow? I watched a video a couple months back where Goobertown Hobbies, he posted a video about how to paint yellow, and he undercoated with pink, if I remember correctly. So you might want to look that one up. I think it worked out real for him. David says, I used purple to shade the Hulk, which I would assume would be generally green. Worked really well. Yeah, I could definitely see that as well. I could see using that kind of thing to get that nice kind of... It brings something out. I don't know what it is. Yeah. Matt Werner says, surprised GW didn't have anything new for Kill Team announced. Yeah, I was also kind of bummed that there was nothing announced for Kill Team in the last 3 of these preview doohickeys. Yeah, that is a real bummer. I was hoping to see something. I don't know what, but something. Let's see here. Near me, the larger stores all shut down, but the small guys are doing local delivery or curbside or whatever they can. Yeah, I think that's a smart plan. A lot of these stores have got to do that to be able to survive, unfortunately. Does GW still make finecast minis anymore? Some of the older models are generally still done, and even sometimes some of the newer ones. Like if they do something that's like a really kind of like almost like a one-off. There was that woman. She was a Imperial Guard, and I think she was a commissar. Something Rain, I think her last name is. I can't remember, but it was based off of, like, I think, a Black Library story, and so I think she was done in finecast technically, but they don't call it that anymore because it got a real bad name. And I think they changed the formulation anyway because it seems to be a little bit better than finecast. I know that the Eisenhorn model was also in that same kind of resin, so there's these kind of here and there they're still doing it, but for the most part, no, they're generally not. Bolt Action, etc. Warlord Games has a skeleton crew shipping again after initially shutting down. I just got noticed that I have an order inbound. Well, that's good. I mean, I think you're going to see a little bit more of that. Legend Eternal asks, do you thin ultramat when using it in an airbrush? Nope. Just drops into the gravity feed cup and I spray it on straight. I don't thin it at all. Yeah, it works out real well. I've been real happy with it. Let's see here. I use ultramat straight out of the bottle. It's real thin to begin with, says Nate W. Same here. Yep. Sunrise Dragons says, I've been thinking about getting an airbrush, but I don't know if I should. I've been doing fine with brushes, but I've been told that airbrush makes minis look better, so I don't know. Airbrush... The initial reason that I got an airbrush was because I live in Wisconsin, and about 6 to 8 months out of the year it is terrible for priming. Either it is too cold or too humid, or sometimes both, which is weird. So for me, originally, it was like, I want to be able to prime models when it is January, or when it is, the middle of August, and you walk outside and it's 98% humidity. And so I got an airbrush for that initially, but since then, I've been using it a ton for base coating, highlighting, the zenithal highlight that people talk about all the time. At the base for zenithal highlighting, you're priming a model all black, and then you're dusting it from above with white, and you kind of add in this sort of like it looks like it's lit from above when you're done, and then you start painting either with opaque paints, and you use the black and white kind of highlight and shade to show this is where the break should be, like the shadows should end here and the highlight should end here, that kind of thing. Or, which I prefer to do the other thing, which is to use thinner paints, contrast paints, glazes, secret weapon washes, stuff like that, because then you could do a really nice fade with your airbrush very simply, just by kind of spraying and just kind of feathering it a little bit. And then you can then slop a transparent color over the top of it, and it will look like you knew what you were doing and faded from like light green down to dark green on this guy's cloak. And it looks like you're a better painter than you are. And so I always like to look for little shortcuts like that. So yeah, I'm a big fan of airbrush. Start slow, just start by priming and doing some stuff with it. Do some practice. Practice on army men, I've seen people practice on plastic spoons. Like I want to prime this plastic spoon all black and then just hit the top part, like you're holding the spoon this way and you just want to try to hit the top part to get it to fade from white to black, and you kind of practice on that or whatever. So yeah, there's lots of different options. Brian Griffith says the actual material finecast, which was trademarked, has been retired. It was more flexible, i.e. bendy, type of resin. Yeah, I've noticed that too, is that the new resin stuff that I have seen come out of them, like Eisenhorn and things like that, has not been nearly as bendy, so that's good. Severina Rain was her name, yes. Let's see. Dice Dealer says, I went with various blends of Pro Acryl camo greens and warm grays for orcs. I've been pretty happy with the results. Nice. Let's see here. Hey, Uncle Adam, I've been thinking of Space Marine jump pack jets and trying to figure out how to model the effect of jet exhaust. There's a company out there called ArmorCast that may have something for that. I know that they make like muzzle flash. Like they make these little pieces of muzzle flash that you can buy. It's like metal, and then you glue it to the front of your gun, and then it looks like, then you paint it all yellow and stuff like that. They might also do jet exhaust as well. I mean, I would take a look for ArmorCast online if you can find them. But yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. I would not know how to sculpt something like that. That seems hard. Hey, Uncle Adam, do you know of any blacks with similar finish to Abaddon black? I have recently gotten into painting, chose Templars. It's hard to find Citadel paints where I live at the moment. If you want a really nice, solid black color, honestly, if you can find Reaper, they make a black primer that's a brush-on, comes in a little squirt bottle, like the rest of their Reaper paints. I use that on like pretty much the rim around every single model that I paint. I use the Reaper black primer. That's the only color I ever use for that. Vallejo black is also pretty black. I have noticed that the Pro Acryl black is not quite as black as I would like. It's just almost like a super, super, super dark gray. But I kind of like that because then I can throw a wash over it and then you still see some difference between the like the crevices and stuff like that, and you know what I mean. Like if you take an absolute completely black and then try to throw a wash over it, you've wasted your wash, kind of. But if you take a black that's not quite perfectly black and then you throw some wash over it, then it actually does something. So there's that. But yeah, I would tell you look and see if you can find Reaper, go online or something like that if you can, and find Reaper black primer, like their brush-on primer. It just comes in, like I said, same kind of squirt bottle that the regular Reaper dropper bottle stuff comes in, and it's really good too. So yeah. Do you have a favorite brand of airbrush primer? Asks G Daddy. Generally, I'm kind of a fan of Vallejo for the most part. I mean, I know Stynylrez from Badger's also the nice thing about both of those is that they have lots of different colors. Like it used to be like airbrush primer came in black, gray, and white, and that was it. Now airbrush primer comes in tons of colors. The Vallejo folks have got a lot of different colors of airbrush primer, blue and red and silver and all kinds of stuff like that. And Stynylrez from Badger does the same. So there's that. Yeah, those are the things. Wing It Gaming says that Anvil Industries also do muzzle flash, flame, and smoke effects. That's also good to hear. Yeah. Gary McGregor says, "Wow, didn't know ArmorCast was still around." They are. Like they sort of went out of business for a while, and then somebody else bought them, and so yeah, they're still out there. Last I looked. Kevin says, "I'm a relatively new hobbyist, and I love working with metals. Quest Miniatures in Canada does some phenomenal Masters of the Universe minis. Do they have the license for that? Or do they just making them and hope they don't get sued?" Let's see here. Mark says that charcoal gray with 2 coats of Nuln Oil is a nice cheat for Black Templars. What I generally do for trying to paint black armor is I try to paint it... It depends. I will like prime black, and then if I'm in kind of a lazy mood, then I will just use... Vallejo makes a color called black gray or gray black. That's a very, very, very dark gray. And I will just use that with a makeup brush and just dry brush it on. That's what I did with my most recent Death Watch. I just dry brushed it on, and it did a nice edge highlight, sort of made it pop, and worked out pretty well. And then I might have thrown a wash over the top of it, but I might not have. I don't remember now that I come to think of it. When I was doing my Black Templar years ago, what I would do is I would prime them black with my airbrush, and then I would use that same color of black gray, but through the airbrush, and I would dust them kind of from above, almost like a zenithal, so that it faded from like this really dark gray to black in all those areas. And then I would go in, and this is before I was using makeup brushes, so I would dry brush a little bit, just to like on the top parts, top of the shoulders, top of the hat, any place there was detail that I could kind of catch in the top parts, and I would only do that, again, with a super, super, super dark gray, or maybe even like a darker than medium gray on those highlights, and then I would throw a wash of like Nuln Oil on it or something like that, and that was basically about it. Yeah, but that can be even more steps, and so yeah. Let's see here. Talk Giants, sure. The Giants came out. Well, they talked about them yesterday, and I thought that they were kind of cool looking. They look a little bit like this, and from what I understand, I believe that this is one kit and that you will be able to build them in 3 different ways. Let's go and see if I can find this information, and then do this, and then do that, and then maybe. We'll see. All right, so there was a video, the little running away guy. That's great. Yeah, so these are the lads here. And how am I doing over here? This way. Okay. So yeah, these are the guys here. This guy is the maybe Siegebreaker or something like that. This guy is the Kraken Biter or something, and this guy is Hitty McGee. I don't know. I didn't catch the names, honestly, and I don't really care. But I think that they're great-looking models. I think that they're going to be a lot of fun to build. This guy kind of almost took an arrow to the knee, but not quite. I would probably just move that over to his knee just because it would be funny. But yeah, they're neat-looking models. Now, in the video and stuff like that, they kept sort of showing the original Chaos Gargant, or the regular giant, Chaos Giant, sort of near this model. So it was hard to tell what the scale was. Somebody, and I forget exactly who, but somebody, I apologize, somebody in the Discord, in the Irregulars Discord, sent me an image. This image, I don't know where this image came from, so I don't know how true it is. They're saying here that these new giants are going to be 9 inches. If these new giants are 9 inches, then that's really kind of disappointing, in my opinion. Because, like, that's really only about this tall, which, you know, obviously this means nothing to you, but that's surprisingly, like, if this is Nagash over here, and this is Archaon, or whatever his name is, if the new big honkin' giants are that short in comparison, then I wonder if it's worth it. I don't know. I mean, they're cool models, don't get me wrong, but I kind of figured they were going to be closer to 10, 11, maybe even a foot tall. But if they're going to be actually this short, and again, I don't know where this number, like, I don't know where these numbers came from, where this particular piece came from, this graphic. But if that's the case, that's kind of a bummer, because then that's not nearly as tall as, in my opinion, they ought to be. I mean, like, 9 inches is really not that big for a giant, in my opinion. Because, like, the current giant is probably easily 6 inches tall. So this guy is only a little bit taller. I don't know. That's kind of a bummer. This was another cool thing that popped up yesterday. It had nothing to do with the giants, but I really liked this model, I thought. I mean, other than the gun, honestly, I would probably swap out that goofy Dustbuster that she's carrying and put, like, a better gun on her. But that's just me. I'm not a big fan of the Eldar weaponry or most of anything else that's Eldar related for the most part. But yeah, I thought that other than that, I thought this was a great model, this new Inquisitor idea. But yeah, so this is a little bit of a bummer. Like I said, if this is actually true here, then that's, in my opinion, those giants are not as giant as I would like. They are very detailed and interesting, though. So, yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. Like, I really love all the details. Like, this is like there's a couple of ships, cannons over here, you know, that are all wrapped up with a bunch of things that this guy's using as a club. That's very cool. He's got a really friggin' huge, like, shark's jaw just wrapped around his neck, kind of. He's got crazy sandals, sort of, but really needs kind of needs to go to the, well, probably a podiatrist, really, but at the very least needs to go get the nails looked at. And then, yeah, this guy, I don't know what this guy's deal is. I forget what he's called. But he's just, I don't know, he's got these kind of horns on his back, which leads me to believe he's probably got like a dragon skull or something that he's just got strapped to his back there. I don't think those are his horns. I think those are something that's riding around on top of him. And then this guy's got the funny hood for some reason, which I think was interesting. And I don't know, and like his portcullis is a loincloth. That's really pretty cool. I mean, if you look at him, like, it seems like they're, like, this guy's got sandals. People in the chat yesterday were talking about, like, well, it's just the same feet over and over again. And I'm like, but yes and no. Like, you can tell here the way these straps work down here, these ropes around, like, this stuff wrapped around his ankles, that's probably the case. Like, this part's the same, but I'm wondering if the feet are different. Because this guy, they kind of have the same stance. And they were smart the way that they shot these guys, because they rotated them all a little bit. So you can't tell if these legs are basically kind of the same over and over. But you'll notice there's like a nick on this guy's knee here. There's a nick on that guy's knee there. And it looks like there's one there as well. So I get the feeling the legs are the same. And these guys have got the same feet. So unless these sandals somehow slide on when you glue the thing together, I don't know how else they do that, because otherwise I kind of feel like basically from the thighs down that they're basically the same model, which is understandable. If you're going to be selling one kit, if you had to sell these as 3 separate kits, that would sort of suck. So selling one kit and you being able to, just like the old Giants, be able to go through and really kind of customize them and do things cool. But the old Giants had different feet. Like, you could give them hooves, you could give them more toes, less toes. There was all kinds of crazy options. But this is a bigger model to some degree, so there's that. But yeah, so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. People talking in the chat earlier about whether or not this is whether these guys are destruction only, I mean, this guy's got a corn symbol on his front, but that doesn't mean that he's necessarily a fan of corn. It could just maybe he killed some corn dudes and decided to use them as a loincloth. There's plenty of skulls and shields and all kinds of stuff going on all over these dudes, which I think is neat. I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I'm really kind of hoping that whole that 9-inch height on these giants is not completely true, because I would like them to be taller than that. People thinking that the Dustbuster thing is not my joke. It's actually my wife's. As I was watching the thing yesterday on the TV on Twitch in the den right there, she came in and I was like, "This model's really cool looking." She's like, "Why has she got a Dustbuster?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." So yeah, that's my wife's joke right there. They are at least bigger than that image that you showed implies. I really do hope so. Absolutely. Yeah. Based on the size of the regular giant to Nagash, and then comparing up to the image in the community site, the new giant's head would end up roughly where Nagash's top staff is. They do kind of have Simpsons fingers and toes, where they're kind of missing some a little bit, or a little bit less, yeah. Chris says that even if they are as tall as Nagash, most of Nagash's height is his staff and its magic swirls. Well, also, yeah, that's true, the Nagash, right. So these guys being that tall with no spindly bits, height is amazing. Separate feet, same legs, just like the 40k Knights. It could be. Anyone got the current giant to measure? I have one in the basement, and I have one at the studio. But I don't have one within arm's reach, sadly. But I do know that they are probably 6 inches tall. Maybe 5, but I feel like it's closer to 6. Aaron Thomas says the giants are non-faction specific. You can take one in any army. I haven't seen that written anywhere, so I haven't heard that, but yeah, it'll be interesting. Adam, was there anything you were hoping to see in the GW previews that you didn't? Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, like I said before, Kill Team. I definitely would have liked to seen some new Kill Team stuff. Boy, I really would have liked to have seen a lot more Space Marines and Stormcast. No, that's not completely true. I'm not against them, but I know a lot of people complain about how everything seems to be Stormcast and Space Marines. I don't know. I guess I would have liked to have seen... What do I think is missing right now? I mean, there's a lot of things that are missing. Some of those things I go, I don't really care that they're missing, because I'm not a fan of that particular whatever. I don't know. I would have liked to have seen maybe some more... I'd like to see almost like a Nurgle-ish kind of warband for... Warcry. Like they showed off those new sort of more dark elfish ones where the leader looks like Cobra Commander's great grandma, because it's like a lady and but she's got the big like mirror thing over her face and stuff like that, and I was like, hey, kind of like Cobra Commander. There was also that one elf lady that was standing on the rock that they showed off, which I think is for the new elf mountain cow band, whatever it's called, and she was an interesting sculpt, but her headpiece better get HBO or something, because it was really big, and I hope that it had a point, because it looked real weird. Yeah, I don't know. All the new elf stuff has obviously not been falling on the right set of eyeballs as it comes to me, because I'm just like, meh. But a lot of it I've looked at and gone, I don't know what the heck is going on there. It's just not my jam. What do you think of the Snotlings? I thought they were kind of cool. I liked the pump wagon thing or whatever. I thought was very cool. More cat shenanigans. Yeah, I don't know that I would ever run them in Blood Bowl, because the way that they were explaining them in the preview yesterday is that they're basically hard mode for Blood Bowl, and so I'm like, well, I'm not super into that, but yeah. But the models I thought look kind of cool. They said in the preview that they were nearly twice as tall as the current giant. Well, if that's the case, I swear to God, the current giant's got to be nearly 6 inches long, but maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. Chris here says that Vince measured one and it was 4 inches tall. That doesn't seem... I don't have a tape measure anywhere around here, do I? No, I do not. Anyway, well, again, I want them to be big. I would like them to be... I think they need to make a cool Forge World one, like a Forge World giant that's easily 2.5, 3 feet tall. I think, like, do that, you know? Why not? I mean, that's such a cliche.
I know, but I don't even know where it was.
Yeah. And one of the cats was playing with a ball of yarn that she had stolen and was running around with it and stuff. Yeah, same cat, Margot. She loves the ball of yarn, and I'm like, that's really kind of a cliche. You're a cat. Come on. Let's see here. Just measured my giant. It's 4.5 inches tall, not counting weapons held high, but he has bent forward a bit. That's interesting. I swear to God, mine is bigger than that at the studio, but I don't know. So yeah, I mean, I guess if they make it 9 inches, then maybe that's... Oh, tape measure. Neat. Thank you. I don't know. Yeah, maybe he is 4.5 inches, 5 inches tall. Huh. I don't know. Anyway, nonetheless, I want a really, really big giant, but if this giant works out relatively well, I mean, because like if he was a 9-inch giant, that's going to make him, that's centimeters. That's going to make him from this finger to that finger, so I have to back that up. So that's a giant that's about almost as big as my head. As tall as my head, nearly. I have a pretty big head, so I guess there's that. But, yeah, I don't know. I just keep thinking of those old G.I. Joes that were like a foot tall, and I'm like, that's what I want for a giant. I may want to give him a kung fu grip and make him posable. That would be sweet. I am not necessarily the best particular audience member when it comes to some of these things, so there's that. I understand that. Please, no more Nurgle. Already so much Nurgle around. I would just want some for Warcry. I mean, I think I can take Maggotkin, maybe. I think there's a card set someplace you can buy for Warcry, but I would like to see some... I don't know. I'd like to... There's a part of me that would also kind of like to see maybe slightly skinnier Nurgle guys. Like, maybe give them pot bellies, but don't make them huge and corpulent. You know what I mean? I like that word, corpulent. Where are the lizard men? There's none out there of them since... Yeah, well, that's the thing. That was also interesting. At LVO, no. Yeah. Yeah, at Las Vegas Open, I think, during that preview, they were like, hey, look, we're making a new Lizardman book, and then that's it. And, like, nothing else. And, like, not even a single new model for Lizardmen from what I've seen. And I'm kind of bummed by that. I would like to see some new Lizardmen dudes. There is a Forge World Giant. It's huge. Huh, I haven't seen that. Kelly says, at least the cat is staying in her lane. Well, yes, that's kind of true, yeah. At least the cat is playing inside. Also true, yeah. Also, while I'd love an insanely massive giant for Age of Sigmar, I don't want to have to shell out like $1,000 to make a 3-model army. Again, like, it would be interesting to see something that was equivalent to like a Warlord Titan, which admittedly they cost like $2,000 from Forge World, but they're also 3 feet tall or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I'd like to see a giant that was almost that big. I'd have to look at this bone grinder guy that people are talking about to see what that looks like. But yeah. Let me see here. Kings of War's new giant looks great. I remember seeing a picture of it about a month back, but I don't remember it that in detail. But I would like to take a look at the new Kings of War one too. I think it's kind of interesting. Let's see here. The Night Titans are only... Whoop, and I missed it. Are only 9 inches tall. The Night Titans. Are they? Oh. We need a banana for scale. That would have been really super helpful if they would have put a banana in there. Adam just wants to use his G.I. Joes for Gargants in the game. I mean, why not? There you go. The bigger it is, the easier it is to paint. Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes, yes. I think that big models are hard to start with if you're relatively new to painting. But once you get it going, then it's not too bad. Cow elves are even less of a jam than moist elves. Yeah, honestly, if I had to pick between the two, I wouldn't. I don't know. It's not my thing. The Mantic Giant is about 7 inches tall. Well, that's kind of cool. John Ashley Smith says, got to admit, I'm prejudiced against elves. Yeah, same here. I'm not a big fan of elves either. I just want some lesser base infantry for Maggotkin. I think skinny guys with pot bellies that they're all, bubbly and whatnot would be kind of cool. But not particularly plague... what are those guys called? Plague... not plague crawlers. Plague bearers. Like, I don't like... Like, I want them to be, like, human, but, yeah, I don't know. I should probably learn to sculpt is what I should do. That could fix my own problem not very easily, but at least partially easily. Underworld's Lizardmen, I assume that's coming. Yeah, you and me both. I was really hoping it was going to come in Beastmen, and it doesn't seem to be, I don't think. But I really want some Lizardmen for Underworlds because I want to paint some Lizardmen, but not all the Lizardmen. I just want to paint 6 or something like that. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Storhertgen. I'm sure I've mispronounced that. I'm waiting for new Lizardmen models before I dip my feet into Age of Sigmar. Well, you may have to wait a while because the new book is coming out, the new Battle Tome for Seraphon, but they didn't announce at the same time any kind of models, so that's sort of a bummer. As I mentioned just a bit ago. Adam, do you think that Scavies and Redemptionist will be brought back to Necromunda anytime soon? I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know if they I don't know if they're going to push more stuff into Necromunda. They've released a lot of stuff from Necromunda, which I'm super okay with. I don't know if Dark Uprising was kind of like a final hurrah. I haven't kept strong. That's, I guess, a thing I also would have liked to have seen in one of these last 3 previews. I would have liked to have seen another gang for Necromunda be released or something like that. That would have been cool. Dwarves with big hats. Well, that's sure. I guess why not? Let's see. What else? I like elves. However, they kind of lost me with the cow thing. Says Darren. Yeah. The who did I over on Vince's channel after they kind of did one of those announcements. I think they decided the new name for that army should be the Techless Longhorns, because it's like, Techless is like, and then the Texas Longhorns is I think a college team. Anyway, so the Techless Longhorns, I guess, that's from Vince's channel, and I think that's a good name because they do have a lot of big things going on up there, which is weird. Brian Etheridge says, but for Warcry, can't you take AOS models from any faction like Kill Team? Some factions and only some models, and you have to be able to buy the card sets, I think. Some of the card sets have been a little hard to find, but yeah, you can bring in some certain Age of Sigmar models from Age of Sigmar into Warcry. So you could bring in, I think you can bring in the Blight Kings if you want to go Nurgle, but I need to double check on that. I just was I wanted to see they made all those crazy different Warcry war bands, and they've announced a 7th one because there were their original 6 that were all kind of vaguely chaos, like the Corvus Cabal and the Iron Golems and the blah blah blah. And then now they've announced this new one, which is basically kind of Dark Elves. And I would like to see more Nurgle-y. I would like to see the same types of kind of sort of buff fighters, but you could tell that they're starting to head towards being kind of distorted by Nurgle, but they're not big, huge fat guys yet. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's what I want. It's very specific and probably not a good business move. Let's be perfectly honest. Lumineth, that's the name of the cow guys, are going to be a hit or miss aesthetically, just like Fire Slayers are. Yeah, probably true. There's a lot. It seems as if there's a lot of armies in because of the breadth of Games Workshop stuff. There are armies in there that are like nearly everybody can be like, yeah, those are cool, kinda. I mean, some people are like, man, they're kind of cool. Other people are like, this is what I live for, and that's their big sellers. They're Stormcast, they're Space Marines, that kind of stuff. And then you start to head out into the outliers, and there are people who absolutely love them or absolutely hate them. And you see that in a lot of things. You see that in cars, you know, like, what was that? It was a Pontiac Aztec. I don't know if you remember that vehicle. There were people that were absolutely in love with it, and there were other people that thought it was the ugliest thing ever. PT Cruiser was kind of the same thing. Like there's a lot of cars out there that everyone's just kind of like, yeah, great, that's a car, But there are also cars that are on these weird outliers of the spectrum, and you see that also in miniatures, specifically from GW. Smaller companies maybe don't have the breadth of that so they can kind of go that direction. They generally try to stick with stuff that's kind of appealing to everybody because they are trying to sell more stuff to keep their business afloat and stuff like that. But when GW is big enough, they can kind of go off into sort of weird directions. I will admit, and I don't know if you've seen this, but when they first announced, I think it was back again at Las Vegas Open, when they announced the Lumineth initially, one of the models they showed in that warband or the army is it's like a suit of armor with nobody in it, and it looks hollow. Like you can see, because of the way the cloak is and the way they sculpted it, you can see there's like nothing in between the elbow and the and there's nothing at the knees, and it's just like this hollow piece of armor. I forget what it's called. That's a cool looking model. I would almost want to use it for something else, but so I'm not saying that this stuff is poorly done. It's just not to my aesthetic. And I know there's other people out there who are also very interested, but there's also people out there who are like, nah, that's not my jam. So, I think that they're well sculpted for the most part. So there's that. Lonely Bricks has 4 new Necromunda gangs coming this year-ish. Don't know the fluff, but they look like they're based on the existing gangs, just named versions, all plastic kits. Well, that'll be interesting. Brandon Dollar says, my waifu wants to know what your favorite coffee is. I prefer generally light roast. I don't know. I don't have a specific... We've been drinking a lot of... Seattle's Best, maybe? I don't know. We've been getting it from the grocery store lately. I don't know. I have kicked around the idea of... Because my studio, where I film, is above a coffee shop, and they roast in the coffee shop. Like, they roast their own beans. They got a roaster and the whole deal. And so... Which is sort of cool. Sometimes when I'm filming, it smells like a lot more like coffee than usual there. I have thought about doing Tabletop Minions brand coffee, but it's not really particularly merchandise-wise. I don't know that it's necessarily on point, but I could, because I have it's right there. Like, I could just go downstairs and be like, hey, can we crank out some coffee and do this and whatever, and I could design a label and all that. But I haven't gone that direction. But I could, I guess, technically. What else? Hey, Adam, I just finished painting up my last model, and none of the shops near me are doing any kind of curbside pickup. Any tips on any hobby things I could do? I mean, I would look on eBay. eBay is still generally kind of running for the most part. And you could potentially find some miniatures that need some love. You could go through and maybe find some, like, pre-painted or pro-painted miniatures that look like hot garbage, and then strip off all the paint when you get it and redo them. That can be kind of fun. That's definitely like like an eBay rescue sort of a situation. Something to look at there. That's not a bad idea. Otherwise, eBay's not a bad place if you can't, if your local shops don't do any kind of like pickup or anything along those lines. Then I would take a look maybe at eBay and see what you can find there. Whether, again, like I said, it's taking a cheap model that someone's trying to sell that they built or partially painted or whatever, or whether it's relatively newish material as well. That's a place to take a look. The Grizzly73 says you could call the coffee not paint water. That's something. Steve S. says, it's great to watch the Sunday show when I'm painting up Gaunt's ghosts. Keep up the good work. Well, I'm glad that you're enjoying it. Brian Etheridge says that Miniature Market is still shipping. Yeah, I think I've been getting emails from him at least, so yeah. Interested in Warcry, but like advancing model. How likely do you think they would do a new Mordheim? People have been talking about a new Mordheim for quite a while. I don't know. Like Mordheim... The issue with Mordheim is that it is based off of the old world. So... yeah, like if they were going to do a new Mordheim, I feel as if they would almost have to bring it into the Age of Sigmar somehow, so that they didn't have to completely make an entire new line of models. You know, like Necromunda is a very weird thing, at least in this day and age, I think, from Games Workshop, because you generally just play with the Necromunda models, which means they've had to release new models for you to play with. It's not like Warcry, for example. Warcry has got Warcry models, but you can also use a bunch of different Age of Sigmar models. So you can choose to use the stuff you've already got or to buy new sets. And they didn't have to... Like, I was sort of surprised they released 6 sets as quickly as they did. I kind of felt like they were going to sort of spread it out a little bit and then be like... But instead, I think they were trying to get you to buy those kits, but then also go, well, if you don't want to buy those kits, you can still use Age of Sigmar stuff. Kill Team is basically just use your 40k stuff. They didn't make particularly any... Other than terrain, they didn't really make any kits that were Kill Team only. Necromunda, I don't think it... Maybe they have rules someplace, but in general, you just play with Necromunda models. You don't play with, you could use Necromunda models, but you could also use 40k models. I mean, you know, there's no one's going to come and arrest you if you do, but in general, it's designed, the rules are designed to work with those specific House Kador, House Escher, House Goliath, all that stuff, those models. So if they were going to make a new Mordheim, they would either have to advance it to be Mordheim Age of Sigmar style so that you could use your current Age of Sigmar models, or they would have to completely come out with all new kits that were all basically kind of more back in the day, kind of old world. And then the downside of that is then you couldn't really take them and use them very easily in Age of Sigmar if you decided to move into full-blown Age of Sigmar or whatever. So yeah, it kind of puts them in a strange place, at least it seems to me. Yeah, so that's kind of a thing. Let's see. Mordheim can come back when they re-release the old world game that's coming. That's a possibility. I could see that. If they do, like if the new old world game that they're going to be allegedly releasing in several years, if that's going to be plastic kits and all that kind of stuff, there's a potential then I could see Mordheim coming out as a skirmishy style version of it a little bit, almost, kind of. But if all that stuff that's going to be coming out is going to be predominantly like a a Forge World or something like that, then I don't know. It's hard to say. Actual advancement was the best thing about Mordheim. If you like advancement, but you don't... Like, here's the thing. I like Frostgrave instead of Mordheim now. And the reasons are because the henchmen are interchangeable. The problem that I had with Mordheim was that there were certain factions that were just frankly broken in comparison to other ones. And if you were in this faction and then you wanted to try playing a different faction, you had to completely get an entirely new army, basically, an entirely new warband to be able to play. The thing that's interesting about Frostgrave is your wizard and your apprentice are, let's say that they're necromancy. That's their focus. But all your henchmen are just henchmen. Like, this guy's a thief. This guy's a Templar. This guy's a crossbow person. They can be in any of the different, armies. Because it's not really about the army. It's about the wizard and the apprentice. Maybe they are elementalists. Maybe they're necromancers. Maybe they're whatever. And then if you decide, I want to try out a different type of magic, you just replace those two, but you can keep all of your hench people, your henches. Anyway, and so that's kind of nice. But you still get the advancement. Like, your hench people don't really advance. That's the other thing too. It's just pretty much your your wizard and your apprentice. So, if you want to be able to go through and advance every last person in your army, then maybe Frostgrave's not for you. But I like Frostgrave quite a bit there. Yeah. Dorn Jr. says, opinions on Frostgrave. Well, there you go, right there. Rules are free from Osprey currently, but a second edition is coming in a few months. Yeah, it's a cool game. It's done real well for them, and like you said, there is a second edition coming soon. So, and right now you can get it. At least I think right now, still you can get it for free from their website as a PDF. King Bread says they could bring Mordheim back in a second, just called Stormheim. Yeah, I could see that maybe. Yeah, and I think there would be people who'd be super ticked about that if they brought it back as an Age of Sigmar style game. You know what I mean? I get that. But yeah. Hi, Uncle Adam. We have on in the background while we play Kill Team, says David. Who do you favor, Tau or Harlequins? Tau in that situation. If I have to make a choice, I would go Tau. Like I have a Tau Kill Team built. They're not painted yet, but they're built. I think I still need to texture their bases and then prime them, and then they're on their way. But they are on the table. I would not run Harlequins because I just don't like clowns. So there's that. And also, Harlequins, like, in my opinion, to look like Harlequins, they need to have that checkerboard thing going on, and that seems really hard to paint. So I'm not super interested in going down that road. But yeah, that's my choice. I mean, Tau were technically my first army, so there's that too. David Moffat says, I've been thinking of using Rangers of Shadow Deep companion advancement for my Frostgrave solo games, but I haven't sussed out the details yet. Yeah, that was a difference between Frostgrave and Rangers of Shadow Deep, both written by the same guy, is that you can advance more than just kind of your main like boss and whatnot. So that's kind of a cool thing too. Kung Pao says, now I want Kung Pao chicken. Releasing more robust campaign rules with advancement for Warcry would be a nice stopgap for lack of a better term. Yeah, no, that's true. I know, I guess in the most recent Tome of Champions or whatever, there is a little bit of advancement, but not like a ton. I've not thumbed through the tome as much as I should. I own it for Warcry. Like, I am working on, like, as soon as I get done with the current stuff I'm working on, which will be quite soon, I hope, then I'm moving into Warcry terrain mode, finishing that up, and then finishing up the Corvus Cabal, and then probably doing Iron Golems. I'm going to be on Vince Ventruella's Warhammer Weekly show in mid-May, and we're going to talk about Warcry. So I need to... I want to get like I said, I want to get the train finished at the very least by then, and I want to get at least a couple of games in and go through the different books. I've got like the main rule book, I've got Monsters and Mercenaries, and I've got the Tome of Champions. So I want to get a little bit smarter about that stuff to some degree, so I can talk about it a little bit better when I'm doing that show. Ross Wolf says, how has social distancing affected GameFor usage? It has gone down because the app is about getting people together, and they're not supposed to do that right now. So we've kicked around the idea of maybe trying to figure out a way to pivot a little bit so that it can help people who are trying to do online RPGs, Tabletop Simulator, stuff like that, find people to play with and things like that. But we haven't. We've been doing other. I mean, like the regular paying work has been, thankfully, knock on wood, still there, and so we've been doing that. So we haven't pushed hard right now on the GameFor app, on like trying to go through and like redo things for something that hopefully won't last forever. But we're still doing the podcast. We're going to be doing another one of those, and we're doing them remotely. We'll be doing another one of those, I think, Tuesday. It'll go up Wednesday, audio, Thursday, video. So, yeah, still doing that. Jason Weddell, says, I can guarantee there would be at least one person ticked by Mordheim being put in Age of Sigmar. Oh, I bet it's more than one. Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine with it, but I think there'd be a lot of people who would not. So, yeah, definitely. Shadespire is right there as a Mordheim replacement, says Pop Burnsy. I would say no. Shadespire is a totally in my opinion, Shadespire is... I mean, it's a gateway game. That's the way I've talked about it a bunch of times. It straddles the line between board game and miniatures game. The fact that there's basically not really any kind of terrain, there's no three-dimensionality, there's like all that kind of stuff really does not make it Mordheim in my mind. It's a good game, don't get me wrong. It's a great game for getting people into the hobby, but it's not a replacement for Mordheim, in my opinion. Robinson says, "Hey, Uncle Adam, any update on your mom? She's staying healthy." Well, I appreciate you asking. Yeah, so far so good. She's been also social distancing. We talk on the phone quite a bit. She's been talking on the phone with friends of hers and stuff like that. She's been ordering her groceries and having them delivered and stuff like that. So yeah, she's doing okay. Her leg is a lot better, and she's even taken the dog out on short walks. She's not. I mean, she was never a big walker ever, really. But yeah, she's yeah. So she's doing well. She's doing well. I have not seen her. Well, that's not true. I saw her through the window since I got back from Reno, but that's it. We have not been able to hang out, obviously. So yeah, I got back from Reno on the 13th. So I've basically been pretty much well, have I been? No. I did go, I got back from Reno on Friday the 13th of March. I think on Saturday the 14th of March, I did go to the game shop, and there was some kill team. I had some guys showed up, and I was one guy had not played a lot of kill team, so I was kind of helping him out against another guy who had played some kill team. That's literally, and then since that, it's probably the 14th. It's been pretty much, well, no, I take that back again. On the 15th, Sunday, we did go to my in-laws for lunch, like I almost always used to do. And since the 15th, I've basically, been locked down. So it's been a little over a month now. So, all right. Shogun says, "Just now putting the final brush strokes on the Warcry starter terrain while watching." Well, good to hear. It's great looking terrain, I think. I think it's really interesting. Hey, Uncle Adam, long-time listener, first-time caller. Excited to catch the stream and keep working on the Korgorath I started yesterday. The Korgorath. Yeah. I know the Korgorath from the Blood Reavers or whatever, I think, right? That's the guy, he was in the original starter box for Age of Sigmar, where it was Stormcast and Khorne dudes. I think that's the Korgorath, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that's kind of a cool model. Let's see. Definitely looking forward to hearing you with Tom and Vince. That'll be very fun. I've been on their show a couple of times before, I think, in the past. I was on the show, I think most recently was a year and a half ago maybe or so, and it was talking about Kill Team for people who are into Warhammer but are interested in dipping their toe into Kill Team, and so we talked about that, so that was a lot of fun. I'm not normally the right guest for that situation because they do delve relatively deeply into Age of Sigmar stuff, strategy, lore, all that kind of jazz, and I'm certainly not a deep delver into strategy or lore, not in comparison to those guys. So I'm not necessarily, like I said, the right folks to have on there, but I do enjoy hanging out with those guys. They're good dudes. So let me see here. Do you think that there might be a Necromunda 9th or 8.5 ed crossover? The Necromunda figures are cool and they would make great Imperial Guard. I mean, there's no reason you can't just decide to use them. If you convert them and use them and even take them to a tournament, someone might be like, "Hey, oh wait, those are still GW models," and they should, be fine. I'm loving the Necromunda models because I'm using them for kit bashing because they're really awesome for that kind of stuff, and I've been using them for Star Breach. I'm starting to use them for Planet 28. So yeah, there's a lot of little different options out there for things, and those models are great. But I don't know if there'll be any rules necessarily for crossover. It'd be kind of cool if there were. I mean, it makes sense. Legend Eternal asks, "Do I remember you saying a while back that you had some SAM videos banked to be released soon, or am I hallucinating again?" You're not hallucinating, but the SAM videos aren't coming out because they were all mostly completely out of focus. There were problems with the second camera, and so they just weren't going to be usable. So hopefully we'll be able to film some more soon. Obviously, once all of this shenanigans is done, we'll see how that goes. The new kind of situation that I've got for that. So there's the camera that's pointing at Sam, and then there's a camera from above that's outside the frame up here that then points down so you can see what he's doing. And then he can see a monitor that's like right almost kind of like at eye down level in front of him attached to the front of that table. So he can see what the top camera is doing, but it's hard because it's not a huge monitor. It's hard for him to see if it's in focus that well. And it's a situation of like, it's not, you don't have it set to autofocus, because if you use autofocus a lot of times in certain cameras, they'll just constantly like back and forth, try to like if you don't, like how many times have you seen this with someone with a webcam and they're like trying to show you a model and then they have to do like this and do all that to get it to focus. And so, yeah, we don't want to do that. So basically set the focus for a certain spot, but then it's hard for him when he's holding the model to see if he's got it in the right spot. Plus, there's no elbow rests on the stool that he's sitting on, so it's also real hard for him to keep his arms in the same spot. It's been a problem for a while, and we're trying to fix that. One thing is going to be try to figure out a way to make them something for him to rest on, specifically his elbows. If he can rest his elbows here and paint, and it can be a little bit more of a natural position for him to be in. One of the reasons I have a hard time trying to paint on my own channel is because I have to hold, like when I paint like this. I'm like real close to the model, which is terrible for my eyes and all kinds of things, my posture, but it's how I paint. Now, me being like this, paint, it's real hard to get a camera in there without my head being in the way. And I'm sure if you watch a bunch of Twitch, you probably see painters all the time, like their head gets in the way. And that's because you're trying to do this, and now the camera's above you, and it's hard. So one of the ways we want to try to solve that is some sort of elbow rest sort of situation. Second thing is, the camera that I use for that top-down camera, it's a Panasonic Lumix GH5. It has a iPad app. So now, in the future, and I did not realize this before until just recently, you can set it to manual focus, but you can use the iPad app to override. So like, if he moves the model a bit and it's not quite in the right focus spot, I can just be sitting behind the scenes and tap on the model, and it will focus on the model and then stop and not be constantly hunting and back and forth. So we're going to, when we get the chance to be able to do it again, we will try doing that again and hopefully make these videos a touch better. But like, yeah, the last 3 that we filmed just didn't. Like, what came from that particular day of shooting was the last video of Sam and I talking when we talked about paints. That same day we also filmed like 3 videos. If you've been watching his Twitch recently, the Tabletop Minions Primaris guy that he's been painting came from and was started on that weekend, but it did not work out. So technical difficulties, and we're going to try to fix it in the future, and hopefully we can film again soon. Although Sam is starting to do his own videos on YouTube, or will be doing them soon. He's starting to figure out that stuff a little bit. He's going to have a Patreon, going to be a bunch of stuff going on. So check out Sam's Facebook. If you just type in Sam Lenz, Lenz, into Facebook, I'm sure you'll find his Facebook page, his whatever. I don't know if it's not a group, it's a page. Or if you just follow him on Twitch, just type Sam Lenz into Twitch, you'll find it. So, what do you do if your local game store isn't open right now? I'm wanting to get some new models, but my store is closed and I don't like ordering online because last time I did, the models came in broken. Then there's nothing you can do. If your stores aren't open and you don't like ordering online, I don't know, unless you got some friends who will sell you some models. If you can't buy them in a store or online, then you can't buy them. I don't know what else you can do in that situation, unless you want to start sculpting your own stuff. Yeah, that's unfortunate, but it's the way it works. Generally, buying models online, they don't come broken. At least that's my opinion. I almost never get that problem, but there you go. Wub says, need to get that 4K, Adam. No. The 4K will not help with focus, that's for sure. I can crop in a little bit here and there to kind of move things around and stuff, and that's fine, but it causes, at least through my workflow, it causes way more trouble than it's worth, I've found. So, let me see here. 2 stacks of codexes maybe for the elbow rests. Well, yeah, I could be doing that, yeah. Honestly, I'm thinking either just getting a different chair for painting at the studio, or using a different table so that he can actually lean forward a little bit and have his elbows on the table and then paint that way, as opposed to like, you know, it needs to be some work, definitely. Mitch says, a while ago I had purchased a swinging armrest for my computer that attaches to the desk from Amazon. I wonder if something like that would help. Maybe. The desk is very flimsy that we actually use currently at the studio. Like that it's actually more like a TV tray. Well, it's actually a laptop tray, kind of like, you know, stand. And so it needs to be a little bit sturdier. VJ Morph asks, is Sam still doing Twitch streams? Oh, yes, he is. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays at 2 p.m. Central Time, I believe I think it's those 3 days. He's expanded, because for a while he was only doing 2 days a week, but now he's doing 3 days a week. So yeah, and it's 2 p.m. Central Time, which I think is 8 GMT. I think it's 8 p.m. GMT, so if that helps you out at all. But yeah, so he's been doing that. Let me see. I'm going to be streaming from a phone to begin with. Well, that's, you know, streaming is... starting is the most important thing. Very, very honestly. Starting is the most important thing. Let me see here. Mr. Habatino says, I wouldn't mind current Dark Elves with more dramatic poses for Warcry over the previews that they showed. I don't know. I thought those guys were okay. I mean, it was interesting they only showed like 3. Like, rather than showing the entire box, they only showed like some, if I remember correctly. They did not show the entire box from what I get. So that's kind of interesting. John Haynes says, for detail work, I clamp a wood upstand to the edge of my desk. This is made up of a couple of offcuts and a couple of clamps. Yeah, I can see that. That's not an idea. Kadakis? I think I may be mispronouncing that. I apologize. Thanks for your calming voice during all this upheaval. Well, I try. I appreciate it. Zombie Boy says, GameFor app that has a marketplace for folk to exchange or give away old minis or unwanted ones. Honestly, we talked a little bit about that. We've talked a little bit about some sort of marketplace. That may be an option going forward. We've talked with a potential partner that would be able to help with shipping as well, so that rather than you having to find a box and go through a whole bunch of stuff, you could do that if you wanted to, but you could also choose to have another company basically send you flat packed box that you then open up, you fill it, and you do, and then it's already got a label on it, and it's already prepaid, and then you ship it off, and then it goes. So we've talked a little bit about that with a partner, actually, a little bit, but that was super preliminary stuff, and we kind of talked about it, and it was just before all of this happened. So we'll see. Depending on the models, most are fine to buy online. It's only the spindly stuff that's really a shame, as if these aren't packaged well, and the option of return can be cumbersome. That's true. In some situations, like if you're buying a built model, like let's say on eBay, your chances of it showing up a little beat up are sometimes better because someone maybe didn't pack it well, especially if it's very spindly. Like if it's one of those big tree monsters from like the Sylvaneth from Age of Sigmar, then that can be like, if it's already built but never been painted, someone shipping that to you, it might end up with a couple of branches snapped off potentially. But if it's all on the sprue, unless they just put it in an envelope and mailed it, if it's in any kind of box, stuff on the sprue should usually be pretty safe because that's how it's designed to be shipped. You know what I mean? Like from the factory to the stores, whatever, that kind of stuff. So yeah. Paul Noxie says, Adam gets a 4K camera and we can all see in horror that Sam can't actually paint it. It's all lies. Technically, the cameras that I've got all can do 4K now. I just always am shooting generally in 1080. I mean, like this is the camera that I used for the most recent battle report. It's the Canon XA50, I think, and this will do 4K. But I shot in regular 1080 because it's just easier for editing and stuff like that. There's got to be a real specific reason, at least in this day and age, for me to shoot in 4K for YouTube. That's, you know. Any ideas about the best place to sell painted minis? Well, I mean, probably eBay again. Otherwise, if your local shop was open, which is probably not, but if it was, sometimes they have like commission, like sales areas and stuff like that for used models, that kind of stuff. But otherwise, yeah, I would say probably eBay. I know Sam used to sell stuff on eBay. He used to paint on spec, basically. Like if a new codex came out, let's say it was the new Dark Angels codex, he would grab a bunch of like captains or like whatever like the new hotness was. He would talk to some friends who, because he didn't play every armory, but he would talk to some friends who were like, what's the one unit that everybody wants right now from this new book that seems to be almost slightly broken? And then he would buy some of those, paint them up on spec, and then sell them on eBay and started at like $80 pro painted. And this was back before he was doing Twitch, and even he was barely, I don't even think he was barely working with me yet. But then he would put stuff up there, and then sometimes they would sell for just barely over what he listed them at, but sometimes they would get, you'd get that thing where two people really wanted it, and they would sell a unit for like $200 or whatever. Wub asks, was this deal in the EU as well? We hadn't gotten to that point in the discussions yet, so I don't know. But we had talked a little bit about it was certainly at the very least US, but I don't, or at least North America, but I don't know about EU yet. Joe says you can get boxes for free at the post office. Yeah, sure. But there are people out there that are like, well, I would sell this, but I don't have a box and I don't know what to do. But if you can go, look, for an extra this much, you can get a box shipped to you with the postage already put on it, and the address and the whole deal and all that stuff. Then they'll be like, yeah, cool. It depends on the person. That's why you would give them the option in that situation. Finishing up my AdMech infiltrators while listening. They're very spindly, the infiltrators. Many thanks, Uncle Adam, for encouraging people like me to actually paint. Well, you're welcome. I think it's a great hobby. I really do, and I've been saying this for a long time, but I really think it's a great hobby. I think right now is a great time to be doing it. It helps take my mind off of stuff. Like, I'm not interested in watching normal television right now because the ads all suck and news is terrible. There's only so much stuff that I'm interested in watching, like on Netflix and things like that. Some movies, but I don't really want to watch like post-apocalyptic movies right now and stuff like that, even though usually I love that kind of stuff. But video games, like I said, me and moderator Matt have been playing a little bit of real chill kind of like exploration. Like we played some Astroneer, which I enjoyed. We've been playing a little bit of No Man's Sky. Every once in a while, some sort of weird dog bug animal tries to bite you. Sometimes the pirates maybe shoot you, but you can run away pretty easily, but it's pretty chill otherwise. So that's kind of how that works. But sitting down for me right now is still building and painting and getting things done and getting things that when I'm done, I have something. Like, that's the big benefit for me, and always has been in this hobby, is that I could spend 4 hours playing a video game versus 4 hours building and painting, but at the end of the 4 hours building and painting, I've got something, or I'm in the progress of getting to have. Eventually, there's a thing that I have. So I'm like, cool, I created this piece of terrain, or painted it, or whatever, or I converted this guy, or I built this army, or this warband, or whatever. And I feel, to me personally, like I've got something done. So that's why I like that. And I can also, it's a lot easier to multitask. Whenever I'm painting, I'm either listening to a podcast, listening to an audiobook, or chatting with some sort of friend like on Discord or something like that. And it works out real well that way. So that's where we're at. Rob asks, hey, Adam, have you been playing any Star Wars Armada? I played it once. I had a friend of mine down in the Milwaukee area, Christopher Dick, and he taught me how to play. I went down to Milwaukee, and he also taught me how to play Malifaux as well, I believe. Yeah. And so we learned, I had gone down there, and then he was like, hey, you want to try out Armada? And I wanted to try it out just because I always like to try out games so I can at least talk about them a little bit. At the time I was playing X-Wing, Star Wars X-Wing. This is back in the 1.0 days. If X-Wing hadn't have come out, I probably would have got into Armada, but the fact that I was already playing X-Wing, Armada, to me at the time, as far as my particular gaming, seemed redundant. So that's, I don't know, that's kind of where I was at with that. But it was cool. I mean, it was an interesting, I liked a lot of the mechanics, like the bigger ships. You know how if you've ever played X-Wing,
you had those wheels that you chose like what you were going to do, but you had one wheel that you chose for each ship. With Armada, you had small ships had one wheel of what they were going to do next turn, but big ships had more wheels and they had to stack on top of each other. So what that was kind of simulating was that a big capital ship takes a long time to do anything. So if you're sitting there going, what do I want to do? You would be setting this dial and saying, okay, but that dial wasn't going to come up for another couple of turns or 3 turns because of it had to go through the other ones that were on the stack. So you couldn't like take a ship and just be like, oh, I'm going to turn left real quick or whatever, and then do that. You're like, I want to turn left. In 3 turns, I'll be able to turn left because that was. But smaller ships would have fewer stacks of wheels. Like the biggest ones would have 3 or 4 wheels, whereas the smaller ships would have 1 or 2 wheels. Meaning that like a one-wheel ship, meaning that you would make a choice for orders, and the next turn that order would happen. Whereas if you were a 2-wheel ship, you would make a choice for orders, and that wouldn't happen next turn. The one from last turn would happen, and then the turn after that is the one that you just did. And so, yeah, it was this really interesting concept of like the bigger the ship, the longer it takes for orders to get from like the captain to or the commander to who actually turns the screws or whatever. So yeah. J Word says, hey Adam, try to catch your stream whenever I can, putting together some more Space Wolf intercessors while at work, essential employee and all. Well, it's cool that you get to do that at work, I guess. I mean, that's fun, you know. Morgan says, I recently got into painting during this quarantine. It's been fun learning experience making my X-Wing ships unique. Yeah, they paint up actually pretty well, honestly, those X-Wing ships. They're very cool. People talking about Subnautica. Matthew Sears says Subnautica is terrifying. Yeah, I watched a video of some playing Subnautica, and there's like monsters, and it was kind of like, ugh. So yeah, there's that. Oh yeah. Yeah, Matt, why don't you put that Frankie link in there? So I guess I kind of want to end the show today talking a little bit about a guy named Frank Bailey, who is an irregular. So that's one of the Patreon supporters, one of the $4 Patreon supporter guys. Frankie Lee Bailey, you probably saw him chat quite frequently in here in the in the last several years in the chat. Frank Bailey passed away on Tuesday night. His son posted about it in Discord, actually, on Frank's account, and said that he had passed away. He was 39, I believe. He died painting. He had an aneurysm and died with a brush in his hand, according to his brother. So, anyway, there's a link that moderator Matt just put in that goes to his Facebook, and I think that someplace there's a link to some sort of there was a link in that to a fundraiser thing for the funeral, but that's been closed, and I don't know if I think there's a link someplace in that Frank. This is his son, I think, actually, the link in Facebook, but I don't. I looked earlier and I didn't see any kind of new fundraiser thing, so I hope that there's something, but yeah, if there is something else that pops up, I'll definitely let everybody know through Facebook. But yeah, so it was a real bummer. He was at TMX 2019. He drove from New Jersey to Wisconsin and hung out with everybody and had a good time, and it was really good to meet him. And we went out to dinner. Well, I didn't go to dinner. He went out to dinner with a bunch of the other regulars. I was doing other stuff. I saw a bunch of pictures though at the dinner. But then we went out and had drinks later on and saw meat jelly and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so if you've heard the name Frankie Lee Bailey, because he asked a lot of good questions and things like that. Yeah, he passed away on Tuesday night. So I just want to let everybody kind of know about it and everything. So yeah, but I feel kind of glad, I guess. Lord knows that, you know, it seemed like it was quick, and he did it while he was doing something he loved. So you know, that was very cool. I mean, obviously it was bad, but it's a better way to go than the virus and all that kind of stuff. Emily says in his son's link, you can PayPal his Facebook Messenger per his son and his widow, Jamie. There's no additional fundraiser right now, but they appreciate the support. So if you want to do that, you can do that there. I just wanted to let people know about it and everything. We talked about it quite a bit yesterday in the irregulars chat and everything like that. I want to thank everybody for coming today, and I want to thank the people that were able to, the irregulars that were able to help with the fundraiser and all that kind of stuff. And it's just remember to shelter in a hobby and stay sane and do what you love and understand that it's all minute to minute in some situations, but don't waste your time, I guess, is the whole idea. So anyway, again, like I said, sorry to end on a downer, but I want to thank everybody for coming, and thanks for watching.